Welcome to Fresh Start with Jason Cline.
Welcome to Fresh Start with Jason Cline, the podcast where New Mexico residents find real solutions to overwhelming debt. Jason Cline is an experienced bankruptcy attorney based in Albuquerque who's helped individuals and families across the state regain control of their finances and their peace of mind. I'm Evan Mack, and today we're talking about how to know when it's truly time to consider filing for bankruptcy. Jason Cline, sir, welcome back.
Oh, thank you, Evan. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. We're going to talk about how to know when it's time to file for bankruptcy. You've worked with hundreds of people facing serious debt. What are some of the most common signs that you tell someone it might be reaching that point where bankruptcy makes sense for them?
That's a really good question, Evan. And this answer can be different for different people. And the best idea, if you're having financial difficulty, is to speak with an experienced bankruptcy attorney. Now, bankruptcy's not the answer for you. If you've just had some unforeseen expenses, you might fall behind on bills a little bit. And a little bit of belt tightening would probably resolve your issues. However, there are many signs that you can look out for to know that a little bit of belt tightening is not really going to help you. If each month you're choosing what bills to pay and what ones not to, that might be the time to consider bankruptcy. And if you're looking out, or if you're taking out new debt, like new credit cards or personal loans in order to pay older debt, it could be time to consider bankruptcy. And if you can't sleep at night and you can't function well because of the stress you're feeling about these debts, then it could be time to consider bankruptcy. And if you've just given up and decided that ignoring the bills and the creditor calls will just make them go away, then it's probably time to consider bankruptcy.
So it's interesting you say that, but many people try to handle things on their own, for years before asking for that help that they need. What are some of the warning signs that it's time to get that legal advice instead of waiting?
That's actually a really common situation, and it's understandable. People wait for a long time for many reasons, and it's not just a one size fits all answer as to why they do it. It could be pride, it could be fear, it could be embarrassment, or even a belief that in time this is going to get better, even though there's really no sign that it's very likely. Asking for help for these financial problems may be one of the most difficult things that people face. And they think they need to face this alone and figure it out. There's a fear of what other people will think when they find out that you're struggling with debt and need help. And unfortunately, the waiting is going to cause more problems. Creditors will sue if they're not paid for a long time. Once they receive that judgment, they can place a lien on your home, garnish your wages. It's very common that the first time someone reaches out is when their wages are being garnished. That's not too late, but the money that's been taken, it's already gone, and we can't get that back, and only future garnishments can be stopped. So filing before that garnishment began would have saved that money. There's many warning signs to watch out for. Like I said about the signs that might be time to consider the bankruptcy. And the biggest one is feeling like you're alone in this fight against your debt. And you have to figure it out by yourself. If you feel that way, seek legal advice. Call me. You don't have to face this alone. I'll take it from here.
But yeah, Jason, like fear and guilt kind of get involved in this, about that idea of filing for bankruptcy. How do you help clients see that it's a tool for relief as opposed to a personal failure of theirs?
There is a lot of fear and guilt surrounding the idea of filing for bankruptcy. And the thought of bankruptcy has long held a stigma that you're a destitute failure if you file. And online courses or online searches and these days AI contain a lot of myths that support this belief. But despite what Google or ChatGPT may say, it's simply not true. Congress has called filing for bankruptcy a fresh start for honest but unfortunate people. And that is exactly what it is, a fresh start, a way to start over and leave this debt behind. And in today's economy, it's really understandable that you would need help. The price of living expenses like food, gas, utilities, and insurances are increasing exponentially while wages are not going up. And it's nothing to fear or feel guilty about. It's a right that's given to us by our government that's available to anyone who needs it. Also, for the most part, it really doesn't even harm the creditors. They get a tax write-off, and with the time value of money, it's worth more to them than taking the small payments over time. So, bankruptcy has been around for just about as long as debt has been. And some of the earliest references to it and to bankruptcy and debt forgiveness are in the Bible. The common theme in the history of bankruptcy, though, is that it's there to help people, not shame them. And, in sum, needing help and filing for bankruptcy is not a failure. It's a
Hmm.
tool that will help you improve your life, which is actually a success.
So, Jason, when someone reaches out but isn't sure if they really need to file, what kinds of things do you talk with them and walk with them through first?
I encourage people to reach out as soon as they are feeling financial hardship, even if bankruptcy might not be the answer for them. I'm never going to pressure someone into filing. That's an important decision that they need to make for themselves. I'm just there to inform them and to answer their questions. In every appointment, I'm going to cover the basics first to determine if bankruptcy is right for someone. These things will include talking about certain assets like vehicles and real estate, talking about their income and the amount of debt they are in compared to their living expenses. If there isn't enough debt or their income could support alternate routes, I'll tell them that and give them suggestions on what to do before pulling the trigger and filing for the bankruptcy. I feel like the most important thing for someone is to be informed, to know what their options are, and if bankruptcy is even an option. I highly encourage anyone facing financial hardship to call me. The consultation is free and confidential.
Jason, you talked about it earlier, but some people have, making that minimum payments, borrowing from one credit card to pay another. How does that kind of cycle affect them if they wait too long?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And I touched on this in one of my earlier answers. One of the signs that it might be time to consider filing for bankruptcy is if you're taking on new debt to pay old debt. You know, and it's a problem if you're only making minimum payments month to month on a credit card. Most of your payment is going to interest, and hardly anything is going to the principal. By the point of time that you actually pay off the debt, the interest you have paid the debt exceeds the amount of the debt owed exponentially. Also, most people who are only making minimum payments will need to use the cards at times in order to be able to also pay for their living expenses.
Hmm.
So the balances never reduce, and it's never easy to pay to live. Borrowing from one credit card to pay another is an even bigger problem. Once it starts, it becomes a need to continue borrowing in order to pay the debts that are ever growing. It's called the snowball effect. When a
Hmm.
snowball is rolling down a hill, it becomes increasingly larger, just like the debt becomes larger when you're borrowing to pay other debt.
Hmm.
So, and as the debt becomes larger, it becomes more difficult to pay until the time comes that you just can't pay it anymore.
Hmm.
So, this ever mounting debt like this, it causes stress, and that stress can affect everything in your life. Financial problems are linked to relationship, employment, and health problems. Living like this in either situation, with debt always increasing and all of your money going to pay debt and living expenses, is literally paying to live. There is no money for the things you enjoy or to save to retire one day. Life is working to make payments.
For clients who still, have steady income, how do you help them decide between paying debts down versus using bankruptcy to maybe reset?
Again, this is going to be a case by case scenario, and the answer can be different for different people. There are a lot of factors that come into play. We would need to look at the total amount of debt that they have and the length of time that it would take to repay it. For someone whose debts may not be that high, that can afford to make at least their minimum payments each month, bankruptcy may not be the answer. There are other options. If they haven't missed any payments, their credit score may still be good, and something like a consolidation loan might be better, so long as it has a decent interest rate and is a payment that they can afford.
Hmm.
However, options like this need to be carefully researched because there's no point in putting yourself into another debt that you're never going to be able to pay off.
Hmm.
I mean, but for someone who has a large amount of debt and can afford to make minimum payments or slightly more, an assessment of that person's needs will need to be performed. And we need to look at whether that person has a retirement account and is contributing to it. If paying back the debt is going to make it difficult to ensure you'll be able to retire and make it in the future, it may be time to consider the bankruptcy. We can't rely on Social Security being our only income in retirement. A good retirement account is a need. Whether that person would be able to pay for an emergency, things like sudden illness or vehicle problems that would affect their ability to work. If an emergency is going to put you in more debt when you're barely able to pay the debt you already have, it might be time to consider that bankruptcy. And finally, we need to look at the level of stress that the debt is causing them. And as I previously stated, financial stress can be detrimental to your health and your relationships. If
Mm,
the stress is that high, then it's time to look at bankruptcy. And it can be
mm,
a difficult decision to file bankruptcy when someone has the ability to make payments right now, but isn't planning for emergencies in the future.
mm.
But it never hurts to talk to someone about it and find out your options. My consultations are free, and there's no obligation to move forward with the bankruptcy, but at least you would know your options.
So, Jason, are there financial or emotional red flags that tell you waiting longer will only make things harder? Or is there things that you can kind of point out and see in your experience?
Oh, there are definitely emotional and financial red flags that will tell you that waiting is only going to make things harder. I mean, as we've been discussing, you need to be looking at more than just right now when it comes to financial hardships. If paying your debts is going to cause you to not be able to afford to pay for emergencies or plan for your future, then waiting may not only make things harder, it could also be detrimental.
Hmm.
I mean, if an emergency arises and you don't have the money to pay for it, you'll have to either take out more debt to take care of it, or in some circumstances, take losses because you can't pay for it. And these are extremes, but if you can't afford to repair a vehicle and you can't qualify to receive lending for it, you could lose your vehicle. And then you have to figure out how you're going to get to work. I mean, and also many people have furry friends. Pets, just like people, can get ill or injured and need to go to the
Hmm.
vet. If you can't pay that vet bill, and the vet can intercept the pet, or in certain circumstances, euthanize it.
Mm,
This is a situation you never want to find yourself in. I have pets myself, and I know they are family too.
mm,
Also, as we've been discussing, it's more than just financial hardships that debts can cause. Emotional issues caused by the debt are real. The stress of it can affect your health. Stress directly affects the immune system and can cause you to get sick. Further, it affects your mental well being and how you interact with others.
mm.
A survey of divorced individuals performed by the credit bureau Experian revealed that 59% of those interviewed stated that played some role in their divorce, and 20% of them said it played a big role. It's not just intimate relationships that financial stress takes a toll on either. A survey performed by Bright Plan found that 64% of workers state that financial stress has impacted their social relationships,
Wow.
including with coworkers. 50% of them said that it has negatively affected work engagement, and 48% said it has harmed their productivity. I mean, further, a study done by the Colorado State University shows that leaders under financial stress are more likely to have abusive relationships with their subordinates. And a study done by FinCap showed that financial stress leads to lower pay satisfaction, worse use of work time, higher absenteeism, and poorer relationships with colleagues.
Mm,
So if you're feeling like this applies to you, these are red flags. And if your debt doesn't get resolved, it will only get harder. It is the
mm.
time to see a bankruptcy attorney and find out what your options are to relieve these stresses.
So, Jason, what do you say to people who tell you that they're worried about how bankruptcy will affect their credit score or their ability to rebuild afterwards?
This is actually probably the biggest concern of
Right.
everyone I talk to.
100%.
I, there is a misconception that filing for bankruptcy is going to destroy your credit and you will never recover. This misconception is supported by myths that are circulated on the internet, but these myths are not facts. The fact is that credit can be rebuilt relatively quickly after filing for bankruptcy. First, the amount that bankruptcy affects your credit is dependent on where your credit score is to begin with. The higher your credit score is, the larger the impact is. On the flip side, the lower it is, the less of an impact. There are even cases when people's credit scores have been in the 400s that bankruptcy has improved it. One of the biggest myths that circulates is that it will drop your score to zero. I've never seen this happen, and in my personal opinion, I think it's impossible. Even if you have a high credit score right now, though, If you are experiencing financial difficulties and miss some payments or increase the amount of debt you are in, it will also have a negative effect on your score. If you're missing payments, each missed month will drive your score down more and more. Unlike missing payments that continually negatively affect your score, bankruptcy is just one big bad across the board. Once it hits the credit reports, it will never hit it again. At this point, no more negatives are hitting your credit, so the positives can start raising your score pretty quickly. I always suggest getting a secured credit card after filing, a card where you put your own money up against it, and whatever amount you put down becomes your credit limit. Then you use the card to purchase gas and groceries and pay it off every month. That positive increments up your score. I've had many clients report back to me that within a year or two, their score is back up in the 700s just by doing this. Any other positives that report to you will also have the same effect, but be wise in taking on debt after filing. The secured credit card is controllable because you control the limit on it. Other things, like if you're in need of a vehicle, you can get lending. Your interest rate will be high, but the good payments on it will increase your credit score as well. But I do stress that things like getting a vehicle loan are for a need, not just a want, because that interest rate's going to be high until you can refinance it. So the filing for bankruptcy, it really does not destroy your credit and make it impossible to rebuild. It's harmful to your credit, but you can rebuild. And you can do it pretty quickly.
And finally, Jason, for someone listening who feels trapped by debt but really isn't sure what to do next, how can an initial consultation with you help them understand their options so they can feel some relief?
I think this question really sums up everything we've been talking about today. Coming in for a free consultation will help you get the real information about filing for bankruptcy. It can dispel the beliefs and the horror stories that you're finding online and let you know that they simply are not true. It can show you that you have options, that this debt is not an insurmountable problem, and that you can get a fresh start. It is always my goal when I'm talking to someone that is carrying that weight of financial stress on their shoulders to have them walk away from our conversation feeling some relief, feeling like they are now informed and that they know their options. Just remember, you don't need to face this alone. I can take it from here.
Jason, thank you for your time, brother.
Oh, thank you, Evan.
Awesome. And thank you all for joining us on Fresh Start with Jason Cline. If you're in New Mexico and wondering whether you qualify for Chapter 7 or just need straightforward answers about your debt options, visit attorneyjasoncline.com to schedule your free consultation. You don't have to face financial hardship alone. There's always a way forward. Be sure to subscribe, like, share this with someone that might find this information helpful as well. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.